Oh, shit.
She has a rhythm that's so hard to imitate the ladies thrilling.
What's up, Vomniacs? Happy Black History Month. It's your girl, the Nubian Bad Goddess, and we're going to have a cookout. We also have taken the liberty as Black Vomit to invite some honorable guests. We've invited 4 Black or African American historical figures throughout history. Hopefully they show up. And since it wouldn't be Black History Month without some education, we're going to give you some facts too. Next on our list, we have Miss Dona Drake. And yes, it is pronounced Dona Drake, because this diva is extra. And wouldn't you know it, she's one of our honorary guests for the Black History Month Cookout, hosted by Black Vomit and yours truly, Nubian Bad Goddess. The actress, musician, and entertainer was so extra, in fact, she had extra names, extra identities, extra backstories. Let's get into it. Miss Dona would create different ethnicities for herself, some including French, Latina, and Irish. None of these ethnicities were her true ethnicity, as that would be African American, hence why she is here. So y'all, let's move out her way. Miss Dona is passing through. Born November 15th in 1914, Miami, Florida, Dona, an Irish, Latina, French woman, was somehow born to 2 African American parents. She was a very smart and gifted child, and people noticed. Parents supported her education and her talents when she showed interest in things like music. In fact, when Dona was old enough, she went to New York in a girl group, and her mother actually went with her to support her, kind of like as a pseudo manager. Now, passing is a very sensitive subject for a reason. It is mostly seen as something that is disrespectful and shameful even. But it's stories like Dona's that really remind me that things like passing is a byproduct of some trauma or a tool used to survive most of the time. If Blacks or African Americans wanted prominent roles that wasn't the help or the comedic sidekick, they had to do a lot more than anyone else did. More often than not, they just could not be Black, no matter how talented or beautiful they were. It just simply wasn't done. According to sources, Dona really had no choice. If she wanted to pursue her dreams, she simply could not be Black. She would go on to portray herself as a Mexican-born woman who had Irish and French roots. She had the features to pass, and so she did. And Honey played her role to perfection. She learned fluent Spanish, she fabricated a whole new origin story, and according to sources, she did all this while maintaining her family and friends' relationships back home. So they were aware and knew what she had to do. Dona would still go on to face discrimination living her life as a Latino woman, but there is still no contest that people who were of Latina descent or Irish descent still had a better chance than she did as an African American woman. I'll put it one way. Dona, as a Mexican, French, Irish woman, was able to form her own all-girl, all-white orchestra or girl band and tour the country and become very popular while doing so. If Dona was Black, that would be near impossible. It just simply wasn't done, dear. Scandaloso. Dona would go on to secure some roles in TV and film, but usually not as a leading lady. Even getting signed to people like Paramount and still not able to break that mold of supporting actress, who coincidentally was also ambiguously raced and probably a Arabian princess or something, a love interest. There are some spicy rumors that I found in my research that claim that she had ties to the mob in order to secure herself a better seating in Hollywood. Now, as we all know, in Hollywood during this time, they were closely connected to the mob. But when her supposed benefactor ended up being found dead in New York City's Madison Square Garden Park, she distanced herself immediately. She claimed that they were just friends who occasionally rode horses together out in the park. Who bitch said, no claimsies. Her next suitor would definitely be more PR friendly. He was an Oscar-winning and Emmy-winning costume designer who had worked with Dona on several projects together. It wouldn't be long before the two were married, and I found no evidence that suggested that he was aware of her true ethnicity, especially when back in that times, interracial dating and marriage was illegal by law. So if he didn't know, but if he did know, that's a lot on his shoulders to keep so that they both didn't end up in jail. Loving black bodies? It simply wasn't done, dear. Dona and her husband would later go on to have a daughter, and she would take a break from the limelight due to family life and also some mental stress that she was starting to become overcome with. Returning to her acting career in the 1950s, Dona would still remain in her stereotypical supporting actress role. Never dropping her persona that was false or seemingly never being outed, the mental stress seemed to be taking a toll on her. Flawless on the outside, on the inside, she was crumpling under the stress. And in 1957, Dona would retire for good. Dona Drake and her husband would separate but never divorce, and in years to come they would still show up at events together. It would be 1989 when Dona did pass, and a year later her husband would follow. At first I was a bit judgmental coming across Dona Drake's story, but the more I researched her story and I saw things from her point of view and her time period, most importantly, the more my judgment turned from Dona herself and turned to society, which allowed the phenomenon of passing to even exist. So Dona gets an invite to the party because I believe that she was dropped into a game that she was already leagues behind in. And she hustled the dealer. That's why they mad. That's why they mad. I am the Nubian Bad Goddess with Black Vomit, and this has been the Black History Month Cookout. Black cards will be checked at the gate. Lord,